Hey, this is Josh Thompson. Thanks again for listening. If this content is encouraging to you, it would mean the world to us if you would rate the podcast. Your rating will help more people find the show. You can also journey with us by subscribing to our channel. And if you share it on social media, please feel free to tag me and our guests. We appreciate when you share this podcast with those you know. We are believing it will continue to stoke the fire in people again. Special thank you to Landmark Coffee Roasters, a sponsor for this podcast. If you haven't tasted their coffee, you got to go check it out. They got the best beans in Southern California. Go to landmarkroasters.com. Type in promo code STOKEHOUSE to get 20% off. That's landmarkroasters.com. Special thank you to Ola Canvas, a sponsor for this podcast. They build super durable, high-quality clothing out of Costa Mesa, California. Ola Canvas is a small business of creators making some of my favorite clothing and products on the planet because they take time to build each piece and make it with high-quality material. Check them out at olacanvas.com. That's O-L-A canvas.com. Welcome to the Stokehouse. Time to get fired up. Yee! Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Carter in the Stokehouse. Andrew, man, welcome to the show. You are the founder and lead pastor of Royal City Church in Los Angeles, California. You run a popular live YouTube Bible study called Coffee and Prayer that streams on all major podcast platforms. You're also the author of a book called The Privilege of Prayer. And you've appeared on TV, podcasts, many stages preaching the good news of Jesus. You love to travel the world as guest speakers at conferences, churches, and events. And we only met one time in person, and I can neither confirm nor deny if I was coveting your hair and your rock-like Dwayne Johnson build. Like, give me some of that, please, man. No, but your focus and love for the Lord Jesus and planting a church in LA, I knew we had to get together. And by the grace of God, you become an inspiration, influence to millions of people who are facing difficult times and struggles in these days. You've really been able to connect. Praise God. You are married to Kyra. Shout out to Kyra. And you got 4 kids, and you got a little baby girl that just showed up named Journey.
Yeah.
Beautiful name.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful family. Brother, blessed to have you on the show. Welcome to Stokehouse.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. So we met... We met in Orange County in Costa Mesa, just probably maybe 2-3 months ago, huh?
Yeah, it was May. It was
Yeah.
right before I went to Africa.
That's right.
Yeah.
You were in Africa, and we were praying you were going to come back.
Yeah, I made it.
And I was saying I'm going to send the Navy SEALs if you don't come back.
That's right.
No, but you went there to do some ministry, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we connected in the halls of K-Wave. We were doing some little radio spots over there, and I was like, dude, church plant in LA, amazing. And we started kind of just talking a little bit and exchanged info, and we were trying to hook up for lunch. And I was like, dude, why don't you just come to the podcast and then we can sit and talk, hear the story, and here we are.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of better this way, right?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
No, totally. It's all fresh.
It's fresh.
So we literally, that's the thing. I mean, everybody listening, we've literally never met outside of this one other time and a couple times talking on the phone, but it's really cool to be able to connect. So did you grow up here in Southern California?
On and off. So I actually was born in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And I grew up in Southern California until I was 11. And then I moved to Oregon for the last 20 some odd years. And I moved back to Cali in 2020 during the pandemic.
Wow. During the pandemic.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a big move.
Right in the middle of it.
But Portland, is kind of LA-esque.
It's getting
right?
that way.
It's got kind of some of that feel.
Man, old Portland wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Growing up.
Really?
After or more towards the COVID and the pandemic, it is gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no good.
Yeah. I tried some of the brisket tacos right on the outside of the city, that food truck. I think it's Matt's Food Truck or something like that. Brisket tacos.
Okay.
Right outside of Portland, right around there. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Yeah, love the vibe, love the arts, love all of that. Great coffee, of course.
Of course.
And but yeah, you've come down here to LA and planting a church down here.
Yep. Planted a church in 2021 in Inglewood, and we started going once to twice a month, and we actually launched full-time here coming up in about 18 days.
This is Royal City Church.
Royal City Church.
You guys got a website, or you got the Instagram and all that stuff dialed?
We got all that stuff.
Okay, cool.
RoyalCityChurch.org.
You check it out in Inglewood.
Yep.
And did you just plant just out of the go? You just went for it?
Yeah, it was just a word from the Lord. We heard that is what we were called to the city for. Because, like, honestly, who moves to Inglewood? That wasn't somewhere that was on my map where I was like, I want to be there. But I met my wife who was living there. And so I moved from Oregon to meet her and to get together. We got married, and then in about a year, we planted a church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So did you grow up in the church back in Oregon?
No, I have a very limited church experience.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't really grow up knowing the Lord.
Your parents know the Lord at all, or?
No, my mother was a prostitute.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was a drug dealer.
Wow.
And her pimp, yeah.
Wow.
So
this is mostly on the streets of Portland?
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow. Brothers, sisters?
I have a younger brother. He lives in Portland still. We're half siblings. We have the same mom. Different.
Got it. Wow.
Yeah.
So kind of rough upbringing then, huh?
Lots of drugs, alcohol, sex. That was the norm for me growing up. In and out of foster care, kind of bounced around from home to home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And did you go, I guess you were in the public school system then too, huh?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, when I went.
Yeah.
I didn't go very often.
Right.
Yeah.
Was there any saving grace when you were young? You have any glimpses of Jesus?
Glimpses of Jesus, yes. So I was baptized when I think I was like 8 years old. So my grandparents on both sides were Seventh-day Adventists. And so, I went to church occasionally. I remember getting baptized. I hated it because it felt like they dressed me up and they took me in, and then some old guy tried to drown me. That was like the extent of what I knew.
Why is he holding me under?
Yeah, exactly. And so I remember crying before and after. I hated going. So there was that little bit of Jesus in my life. But I think the biggest point where I really can look back in retrospect and see God's grace was my sophomore year in high school when I was in foster care.
Oh, wow.
It was a year that was actually really powerful. The first time in my life I had consistency and discipline, because with a mom who's addicted to drugs, you never know if you're going to go home and she's going to be dead or overdosed, if you're going to have a place to live. There were multiple times I showed up and she would have all of our stuff packed and we would hop in the car and move just like that. And so to be in foster care, it was the first time in my life I had like discipline and consistency. Wow. And so in that year, I got a 4.0 in school.
Wow.
The basketball team. So I could see that in that God was developing probably two of my greatest superpowers, which is consistency and discipline.
So there is a redemptive space within the foster care system, because I think most people view it as just like it's like a dead end road, like it just doesn't work. Did you have some great parents that just showed up, foster care parents that showed up, or were they more just guardian types that just either just nice people, or what happened?
Yeah, it was a single lady. Her name was Marie, and there was about 10 kids in the house. And I mean, we fought and ran, and I snuck in and out. I stole from the pantry, stole from her purse. I smoked weed the whole time. Like I was that same kid abusing the situation. But I think that what stood out is that she provided a place where there wasn't judgment. She was extended a lot of grace and understanding, knowing that we all got messed up backgrounds. So she wouldn't come down on us, even though we would push her away. She would just love on us. And, she was consistent. I think that that's what a lot of kids are missing in the system is the consistency. So I knew that I had a roof. I knew that there was going to be food, lights, and there was protection. It was a safe place. I'd never experienced that.
What is that like growing up with all these different kids from all over the place with all these different stories?
Man, it was a lot of friction and conflict, because we come in and a lot of kids have hurt and pain and defense mechanisms and trauma. And so, I mean, I fought two of my foster brothers at the time. There was a lot of bullying. There was a lot of ganging up. It was a hostile environment amongst the kids for sure.
And then you said you stepped into sports, and that helped with a little bit of direction, this woman being there and consistency. And you were able to get a 4.0, you said, there in your sophomore year.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. I fell in love with basketball. I fell in love with sport. And
what position?
Athlete. Well, I play all the positions, but at the time I was more of a center.
Okay.
Even though I wasn't that big. Yeah. But then eventually I played college ball.
Yeah.
I ended up playing small forward down
Amazing.
there. Yeah.
Amazing. And what high school did you go to?
I went to several. So I went to Astoria High School my freshman year, Warrenton High School when I was in foster care, and then my junior and senior year, I went to Corvallis High School. Yeah.
Did you end up graduating? Did you get out?
I did
amazing.
by the hair of my teeth, man.
Amazing.
I barely. A lady invested in me. Her name's Elaine Markley, and I was short on a lot of credits and was struggling, was wrestling with drugs and whatnot. But man, she invested time. She wasn't an actual guidance counselor. She was a volunteer counselor, and I mean, she just poured into me and spoke life into me and walked me through all of the steps to get myself graduated. So I actually graduated.
Well, it's incredible you beat the system, because a lot of guys don't do it, right?
Right. Well,
statistically, a lot of guys don't do it. It's just sad. And by the grace of God, you beat the system. Yeah. And I don't know, how do you see the hand of the Lord or like his finger kind of like moving? Because, it's like by the grace of God, this foster care woman showed up. And even though you guys were mean at times, why'd you want to be consistent, Right. By the grace of God, this woman stepped in with the credits, and like helped you basically figure it out, be like, you're gonna make this happen, Can you see God's hand when you look back on, I don't know, junior high, maybe keeping you like, man, if I would have gone down that road, sixth grade, if I would have gone that way, during junior high, I would have gone that way. Like, you know what I mean? Even though you're goofing off doing a lot of dumb stuff, it's like somehow the Spirit of God is like keeping you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I can look back and see times I should have been dead, should have been shot, killed easily. And so I see his sovereignty and his love and his hand over my life. So many times people would say that they saw something special in me and would invest, even non-believer, like, there wasn't always faith involved, but it was people taking a special interest in me, speaking life, pulling me aside and trying to encourage me. And like you said, I was just hard-headed, didn't want to hear it, didn't want to receive it. They didn't know what I was going through in my mind. But I can just see over and over the redemptive hand of Christ trying to grab a hold of me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that has got to be a miracle, and maybe the other part of your superpower is like, I feel heavy. I feel like you walk with authority, like you can fill a room when you walk in. You have a heavy demeanor walk in, but your countenance is light. Like I feel warmth and a light countenance, like from the first time I met you, and even just today, like when you're walking in, and it's like, so you can't perceive all of this darkness,
Right.
It's like, right. It's a beautiful thing that you've been able to take, all of this darkness and somehow, attempting at least to redeem it in your own mind, in your own heart, to keep on smiling, keep on loving people, think positively, like be disciplined and just keep moving forward, believing that God's going to show up. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do.
No. What I see is that everything that I've gone through is an opportunity to better relate to others who've gone through similar things. So I don't look at myself as a victim. It's like God allowed me and was with me through all of those things so that I can better empathize. And so because of that, we work with foster care, kids in the foster care. So I'm not coming from like, I read a book on foster care. I've actually been there. So I'm better able to empathize. Same with kids who are growing up in homes with addicts. So I have a better way to understand the lost and people who need Jesus because I've been there. So I just see it all being a part of his plan and a way to glorify his name.
So you stepped out of high school and you made it to college and you're playing ball.
Not immediately.
Okay.
Man, I spent time in jail. I spent time in prison. I mean, I ran amok.
This is through your like late teens, early 20s?
Yeah. So I graduated at 17.
Okay.
And, about a year later, I ended up getting a girl pregnant, and I ended up marrying her. So I got married for the first time when I was 19 years old. 19, I didn't know what it was to be a man, to be a husband.
You just think it was the right thing to do, or you loved her, or you wanted to?
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is I felt an obligation.
Yeah, responsible.
A burden.
Yeah.
So I didn't grow up with a dad.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just like, I would never want a kid to experience not having a father.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, it was the right thing to do.
I see. Yeah.
So got married, and the situation was toxic. I mean, when you have two kids who were together at 17, 18, bringing a kid into the world, you don't know who you are. You don't know what you're doing. There was no faith really involved. So I found myself in trouble, got myself in trouble, in and out of jail. It was kind of a rough situation. Yeah.
And And this just went on for years. Was there a crack in the door, or a light there in the tunnel? Like what kind of started pulling you away from this? These rhythms of darkness, these rhythms of running from doing what is right.
Yeah. So at 17, about the same time that I met this gal, who I ended up marrying and getting pregnant, I gave my life to Christ.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow. Where was this at?
This was in Albany, Oregon. Her brother was a born again Christian.
Wow.
So she had an older brother.
Okay.
And so at the time, he was like going around the family trying to convert everybody.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So he was just
radical
through the whole family, And so he actually pulled me aside and he was like, "Hey, listen, man, this is before she was pregnant." She said, "If you're going to date my sister, you got to be a Christian." And I was like, "Man, I'll do whatever I got to do to date your sister."
Right.
And so, we sat in the car and he shared the gospel with me, told me about sin, salvation, transformation, afterlife, spiritual warfare. At the end of the hour, I was convinced that Jesus was Lord and that he died for my sins. And so, I prayed a prayer of salvation and attempted to give my life to the Lord. And I can say that nothing necessarily changed in that moment because I went back home where I had drugs and alcohol.
Sure.
I had all of the same creature comforts and sin that I was living in. But the one thing that did change was internally. So I tried to smoke weed, and it just made me paranoid. I wouldn't get high. I tried to get drunk, and rather than getting like drunk, I would get angry. I would try to have sex outside of marriage, and so I would just feel guilt and like this shame. And so what I liken that to is like I received the Holy Spirit, and now the sin that I was so comfortable with I could no longer live in that sin.
Amazing.
So now there was this conviction.
Yeah.
And I was mad. I was pissed because I was like,
You want to party?
I wanted to party, man.
Yeah.
This Jesus guy messed up all my sinning, man. It was horrible. So
I love it.
Yeah. So, I wrestled with that for a couple of years. And then when I was 23, the big shift kind of took place, a bigger shift in the journey. We got ourselves into a church. I spent 6 months in jail because, again, transformed on the inside, but didn't know. I didn't have mentorship. I didn't have discipleship. There were no men in my life leading me. I was a kid with 2 kids now trying to piece it together and figure out what it was. But we landed in a church after 6 months in jail. I started going to this church, and they were a Bible-believing church, and they were militant about it. It was 7 days a week. There was something. Monday, men's group, Tuesday, outreach. Wednesday was service. But every day of the week, there was something. And so we got into that church, and they were a church that planted churches. So the pastor started to disciple me and started to raise me up as a leader to be a pastor. Yeah. So it was the first time in my life that I actually had that kind of discipleship and mentorship.
Was there any epiphanies when you're sitting in jail or in prison? Was there any lights turn on in there, or were you? Sure, you must have understood, I guess the culture of it a bit and what happens, even hearing on the outside and then going in. But that stepping in there, sitting down, like the gates closing, all of that kind of stuff. Like what happens to a young guy? You got a wife, you got a couple kids, you're just like, yeah.
Yeah. The time that I spent 6 months in there, I met a guy named Puppet. He was a gang member in there. And Puppet was a Christian. He proclaimed to be a Christian.
Wow.
So, we would walk around the yard and we would do push-ups. And then we would also read a proverb. So whatever the date was, we would read the proverb for the day. So on the first, we'd read Proverbs 1, 2. And so we did a little daily Bible study of Proverbs and push-ups.
I love it.
And he was like my first, I would say, mentor as he was walking me through the word. I didn't understand it. I had no knowledge of what actually it meant, but it was speaking to me. He was planting seeds, and it made me feel lighter, and it made me feel like there was more purpose. And so that's what piqued my curiosity when I got out of jail. And we actually went to the church that his wife, because he stayed in after I got out, but he recommended the church that his wife went to. And so we started going to that church when I got out. And eventually he got out and joined us at the church.
Dude, so cool. Wow.
It didn't work out very well for him.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What causes a man to start sharing a proverb a day with a young guy who's, in jail with him? What is that?
I think it's hopelessness. Yeah. And it's that you're at rock bottom. I mean, there's not a whole lot lower places that you can get than incarceration. I mean, there's a few steps lower, but it's pretty low. And so I think that He was a man who saw somebody seeing something in me, searching for hope, lost a world of potential, but squandering it on selfishness and short-sightedness. And so I think that he just stepped out and started sharing from what I believe has helped him. His issue is that he struggled with addiction, and shortly after he got out, he actually died of an overdose. And so I understand that, he loved the Lord and there was a passion. I could even look back in the way that he would preach and the way that he would minister. He would be clean in jail, not using drugs, and he'd be the greatest guy in the world. But as soon as he'd hit the streets, that addiction or disease would get a hold of him, and he left behind some amazing kids, an amazing wife, because it got the best of him. And so I think in his moment of clarity at this rock bottom, he saw something and felt that the lead by the Spirit to plant those seeds and to minister to me.
It'll be fun to meet him in heaven.
It will be.
He was the puppet of God.
Come on now.
In prison.
Wow.
He was the hand of God in your life, dropping a proverb, the word of God. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. And you're absorbing the word of God, and all of a sudden it's like, I got to get to church.
Yeah.
And boom, it like transforms your life. So this pastor takes you under his wing.
Yeah.
And starts discipling you. He must have seen leadership skills in you. He must have seen some authority, in you. He saw potential.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to disciple this guy. Mm-hmm. How long did that go on for?
About 2 years or so.
Wow.
About 2 years. And it came to a head. It came to a halting screech, actually. We had an evangelist. So this church, we had revival every year. We had a 7-day revival, and we'd bring in this evangelist. And it was the same evangelist every year. And so my first year in the church, the guy came, and at the end of each night, he would call one person up, and he had a word for him, a prophetic word. And I watched my first year as he called each person up from our church. The next year, I watched that word unfold in their lives.
Really?
Yeah. Like
amazing.
I witnessed it, whether it was, whether it was in ministry or career or health, whatever it was.
Amazing.
I was like, man. So the next year, we know that we're gearing up for this guy to come. And my prayer was just like, God, I need a word. I want to be one of the 7. I know that he's going to do this year. I want to be one of the 7. And so on the last night of revival was my night. He called me up on night 7 of revival. And he's like, come up here, young man. And he said something to the effect. He said, Andrew, you have words of gold. You're called to speak to millions of people about Jesus, and you're called to ministry. Give me those 3 words. And I was terrified, and I was mad because that's not what I wanted to hear.
Wow.
I wanted a financial blessing. You know what I mean? I wanted that windfall.
You're going to be the richest man in the world. Yes.
That's what I was looking
Bang.
for. Exactly. I was searching for that.
I get it.
I even was like rubbing my hands as he called me up.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, almost 2 weeks later, I left the church. I walked away from the church.
Wow.
And it was just a weird experience because I played basketball at the time. And mind you, I'm about 23, 24 years old. Haven't gone to school. I'm still working the same job. I'm building houses, manufactured homes. I've done labor.
You're construction.
I'm a construction guy.
Yeah.
I have a high school diploma, nothing else. And, that's just what I was doing. I was grinding. But I was tired. I've been doing that since I was 17, since I graduated. And I was like really hoping for something. So I'm playing basketball. My buddy just got back from Afghanistan and he's an older guy. He's my age. And he said, hey, let's go play some ball at this school over here. They have an open gym. We go to open gym and we're hooping. And we spend about 2 hours playing ball. And at the end, this old guy comes up to me and he goes, hey, what classes are you taking next year? And I was like, dude, I'm just here to play basketball. And he said, well, if you come to school, I'll pay for your school. We'll give you a scholarship.
Whoa.
And I was like, hold on a second, right? Like I've never even thought about college. Like it wasn't part of the plan. And so I took that back to my pastor and I was like, this is the word that I've been waiting for. Like this is the blessing is I get to be one of the first in my family to ever go to college. My mom's a prostitute. My dad is a pimp. They don't have college education. And so what he told me is he said that it would be foolish for me to uproot my family and to go back to school. And he said that if that was the case, then, it would pull me out of the ministry and what he saw for me and that it would lead to me going down the wrong path. And I respectfully disagreed. All I saw was a blessing. And so our paths ended abruptly and I started pursuing school. Yeah.
So you stepped into school. That's some pretty crazy favor. You basically get a scholarship on the court,
right?
Just messing around.
Yeah.
and he sees something. And so did you end up doing 2 years there? You do 4 years there?
I did 2 years at the JC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Lynn Benton Community College.
Wow.
Played 2 years there, full scholarship.
How was that?
It was great. I was an all-star for our region my sophomore year.
Incredible.
Academic honor roll, dean's list.
Yes.
I did great in school.
Wow.
Yeah. That the struggle I had in high school was redeemed because now I had been imparted that understanding of discipline and consistency.
Got it.
So along this whole route, I've been in love with exercise and fitness and nutrition. So
I see.
It really helped me in that aspect.
So it's like, so discipline and consistency was like always there. It just needed a little structure.
Yeah.
And like as soon as structure showed up, like a coach showing up and saying, hey, I'll pay for you, come play. And then it's like, there's the structure. Show up at this time.
Right.
We're doing this, we're practicing this time. You're doing school at this time. Here's your syllabus. Here's your classes. Yeah. Right. You just fall right in and
it's easy.
Yeah.
I love it.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah. It came naturally. And, it was a blessing. It was all a blessing.
Mm-hmm. And, mom and dad, did they come back around at all? Is any connection been made? Is there, are they doing okay?
My mom's always been in my life.
Yes.
She's always been in my life. My dad, he came around for a short period, I think when I was about 11. I heard from him when I was 15. I heard from him. I had a phone call when I was 27, and I haven't talked to him since. But my mom, I see my mom regularly.
That's awesome.
Every month or so. Yeah.
How do you redeem all that in your life? How do you compartmentalize or categorize kind of all of that? How do you hold it?
I don't.
Yeah.
I let God have it.
Yeah.
Because
that's good.
At the end of the day, I'm a father of 4.
Yeah.
And so I understand and see how hard it would be. Me having a kid at 19, she had me when she was 20. So I, after raising kids, can understand that she was a woman with a middle school education, limited resources and abilities, and did the best that she possibly could with what she had. And she used her body, she used her resources. And if anything, I think that what my mom has instilled in me is resiliency, because despite her going to prison and rehab and all of the trouble she's been in, she's never gave up. She constantly kept getting up and would try again. And she would get a year clean. She'd fall off the wagon, but she'd get 2 years clean and then go back to jail. And then, so I just see this resiliency in this woman who is determined. And right now, I think she's celebrating 6 years clean and sober.
Wow.
She gave her life to the Lord.
Praise God. Shout out to mom.
Jesus. Yeah.
Amazing. Yes.
So I don't carry it. It's been redeemed.
Yes.
She's a new creation. And you know what? She's an amazing grandma. She loves my kids. She wasn't always there for me as a mom, but she is an amazing grandmother.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's super proud of you and all that's happened, all you've been able to accomplish and do. It's like, as no one, even though you get to, even your new baby girl, like you get to love her and serve her in the ways that you always wished, you were loved and served. But it's like, I think every parent, my dad, will be like, Dad, you're the best dad in the world. He's like, no, I wasn't. I was terrible. Like I just wasn't there and yada, yada. And we're like, no, you're the best, and like, we grew up in a Pentecostal church. My dad's a worship leader, but he's making $25,000 a year driving trucks. And mom passed when I was 6, so we didn't have mom in the house. So grandma kind of tried to help step in, but we were those 3 boys running around with no shoes on in the trailer park, and we had some wild times, growing up. But we, when I reflect back on it, like I choose to, believe that God was at work and that He had the best in mind. Even in the midst of the darkness, it's, and I love looking from that angle. And I like how you said that. It's like, I don't carry it. I let God carry that. Cast your burdens upon Him and He will give you rest. Right.
Yeah.
That's so good.
That's good.
So so college 2 years, and then, you transition out of basketball, out of college.
I went to another school for more basketball.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. I ended up transferring to Western Oregon University. And the idea there, I was recruited by them to play ball. And so I started out the year. I went through all of the workouts and the camps and the training, made the team. And then I actually quit the team because it was just a lot of pressure for me. And again, I'm 25 years old at the time. So I'm playing against a bunch of, 19, 20-year-old kids. I've got older man strength. I've got the discipline and consistency. So I was excelling, but a lot of these kids they're better athletes than I am. You know, I'm just stronger and more consistent. Than I work harder just because I've got more to lose.
Totally.
At this time, I've got 3 kids now, you know, so I've got a couple of kids, I've got a wife, and I got a full-time job. So I walked away from basketball that year and finished out the year. The next year, I went out for the team again, and the same thing happened. I ended up making the team. I was on the team. I think I even got the pictures with the team, but I never played an actual regular season game because I walked away, and I started a business. I opened a gym. I opened a CrossFit gym.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was because the head coach, Brady Bergerson, was the head coach. Well, his wife, Brooke Bergerson, came in for the summer training.
Okay.
And walked us through this training, and it was CrossFit. And so at the end of the, you know, like I said, these guys were a bit faster than I am, in better shape, but I could work out harder than them.
Yeah.
So he made me the captain of the weightlifting team for basketball.
Yeah.
And I ended up leaving basketball and interned with his wife, and she helped me open a CrossFit gym.
Incredible.
Yeah. So I still had the connections with basketball, but I went a different direction.
Wow. How long did you do the gym for?
6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It worked out pretty well.
It worked out great. Yeah.
So you CrossFit teams.
Yeah, it was a part of my downfall.
Wow.
Because it succeeded. It did really well.
Yeah.
It did really well.
Yeah. This has got to be the Rich Froning like era, huh? Like right around there when he's just like absolutely killing it in the games, winning everything.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it just took off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've never done a CrossFit workout.
Really?
I've been working out every day for I don't know how many years. Like I just love it. I love working out, but I've never done a full like proper CrossFit workout. Are you still into it? You still do it? Or what do you pursue now?
I turned 40 on Sunday.
I mean, you're jacked, dude.
I appreciate that.
You are jacked. I mean, and happy birthday, dude.
Thank
40?
you.
Are
Thank
you?
you.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel good, and
you look great.
Good. You know, my goal is to still be able to dunk a basketball, and I can jam.
You can dunk?
Oh, easy.
Oh, dude, teach me your way.
Easy.
Aaron, come on, where are my shoes, dude? I tell the guys all the time on Sunday, I'm going to be dunking on you, dudes. You better watch out.
That's right.
No, I've never been able to dunk. I can grab rim, never dunked.
No?
Never dunked.
It's fun.
Dude, that's amazing. You can still get up.
Yeah. Well, you got to be intentional about it. That was my thing. But I don't do CrossFit anymore as of last year. Last year, I tweaked my calf. You know, you get a lot of criticism about CrossFit, and people get hurt and injured. And I would say that it's not CrossFit; it's usually your ego that gets you hurt. And I'm a walking testament to that. CrossFit, I still do the moves. I still squat and do Olympic lifts and stuff like that, but just in a more controlled manner.
Yeah.
So as I'm getting older, I don't recover as fast.
Sure.
So I feel like I got to be a lot more intentional with what I do.
So yeah, definitely more intentional about your workouts and making sure you can maintain strength, but agility, right? Stamina long term. Yeah, flexibility, and you want to run with your kids.
Yeah.
You know, when you're old, and maybe from a pastor's perspective, like how do you think that plays into your physical health, into emotional health, into mental health, into spiritual health? Since you've been doing it for so long, any tips on that?
Well, I always say that CrossFit got me fit to carry my cross.
Huh.
So not only did it like make me a better like person, but it made me a better pastor. So when you build a CrossFit community, it's very similar to planting a church. So I always look back as like God's hand, even though I was away from my faith when I built this business, I believe that God was preparing me because for 6 years we had people die in our gym. We had people get cancer. We had people have babies, divorce, marry, all of the things that you see as a pastor.
Wow.
And it's all about community. CrossFit is about community. And there's a lot of principles with discipline and consistency, right? If you're disciplined and consistent with your diet and nutrition and your exercise, you're going to see results. It's the same thing. If you're reading your word and you're in his presence and you're worshiping and you're praying, you're going to see results.
That's right.
And so I think there's so many correlations that they cross. They go hand in hand.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's interesting. Sometimes in the church, you have people want to take care of their spirit, but neglect emotional, mental, physical for some reason. And they should connect on all levels, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really clear. Do you think consistency is probably the most important thing in all of health?
Yes, because I would say,
Like, you know what I mean? Regardless of workout, regardless of
100%.
what, diet, regardless of, it's like if you just stay consistent, like results will show up.
I always say the best workout you can do is the one that you'll do every day. Right? Or the best nutrition, because you can hear about CrossFit or 75 hard or whatever.
Yeah.
The thing about 75 hard is it's 75 consistent days. And it's the same thing with nutrition. The best diet that you can do is the one that you'll do consistently. So it doesn't matter if it's Atkins or the Zone or keto or carnivore, whatever. It's whatever you can do consistently.
So good.
To get you to where you need to be.
He's dropping gold.
Come on.
Gold. As the prophet said there in the church, prophecy coming forth. Words of gold. So good. So you said you did CrossFit for 6 years, and it was both a super win, but also part of a downfall.
Yeah.
The success of it kind of caused problems, or you basically had to step away from it?
Yeah. So, I mean, you take a kid who came up the way that I did, was in the church for a very short period. When I walked away from the church, I walked away from it completely. So I went more towards law of attraction, because I was still searching for spirituality. I had met Jesus. I had understood. I prayed. I fasted. Like, I was in the church. And when I didn't get what I wanted, I walked away and turned my back. So the next couple of years, I was doing all kinds of outlandish things, pursuing other gods. And the sad part about it is that I was succeeding. So I was getting the degrees. I ended up graduating from Western.
Wow.
So now I got 2 college degrees. I started a business.
What'd you graduate in?
So I have a degree in health promotion and education and public health.
Wow.
So, the health industry, that's my thing. And so I go from there to, I think our first year we made about $150,000. And then by the time that I was done, we were making about $250,000
Wow.
as a gym owner. No faith, no Jesus. I wasn't tithing on it, that's for sure. I was a kid in a candy store, but I was also unhealed. I wasn't whole. I had a lot of trauma and defense mechanisms that I had never dealt with. I wasn't going to counseling, and I was just masking all of my hurt and pain with money and success. So that had become my God. You can't say anything to me because now I'm hanging out at the country club. I'm driving a Mercedes Benz. I've got the house. I got the kids. I got the wife. I got all the stuff that the world tells you will bring you happiness, but I had no Christ. I had no Jesus. And so that led to me actually committing a crime and going to prison for 18 months. Lost everything. Blink of an eye.
Wow.
And what I did is I assaulted a woman with a wine bottle for calling me a derogatory term.
Wow.
She told me to shut my mouth, you dirty N-word. And I was still that unhealed kid.
Yeah.
And it was 2:30 in the morning, been drinking. I'm not making excuses for my actions, but I took a wine bottle and I hit her in the head with it.
Yeah.
And in an instant, I went from, and that was at our 2-year gym anniversary, our anniversary. So we have over 200 people. We're celebrating.
Wow.
Everybody's chanting my name. We've got a DJ. We got barbecue. All this stuff. I went from literally a mountaintop moment to a rock bottom in a matter of 5 seconds.
Wow.
Just like that. Boom. One swing, one hit. Guess what, bud? You just lost everything. So that was kind of, it was a necessary intervention, but it definitely took a turn.
Yeah, when you reflect back on that, it's like, what a tragedy. It's just like the circumstances. Why has that lady got to show up and do that? Why has it got to prick the point of, from my youth? It's got to pull all that up. It's like, probably even in, your defense is just like, I literally just reacted, and it, just an instant reaction. It's just like, when you reflect back on it now, it's like, I'd never want to ever do that ever, but it's just, I can't believe that's just what happened. And then all of a sudden it spins your life in a direction away from all of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I just had all that. And then all of a sudden there's a big rug pull, just like bang.
Yeah.
So 18 months, you come out on the other end.
Right.
And, what's going on?
I spent 18 months being mad at God. I was ticked because, again, I felt like I did all the right things.
Yeah.
And I still ended up, I never wanted to go to prison. My mom went to prison. My dad was in and out of jail. And so that's why I went the school route. Again, I'm going the route of success, but still ended up in the same place that both of them ended up. And so I was mad. I felt cheated. I didn't take any accountability for my actions. I didn't feel a whole lot of remorse. I felt like I was justified in the moment. And so for 18 months, I just spent stewing. I read a book every single day for the first 50 days that I was in prison. Every day, a book.
Wow.
I was consuming knowledge, and I'm a big reader. I love to read, so that's what I was doing. So I was like journaling, writing, reading. I was working on myself, but I didn't want anything to do with God. So people would like read this book, like this Christian book. I was like, get that out of here. I don't want anything to do with God. They'd invite me to Bible because there's a Bible study and there's also church in prison. And I was like, nah, man, I'm good. I don't want anything to do with it. So I explored other religions. I even went into the Muslim service that they had. I went to the Native American service that they have, Catholic service. I went to like all these other things, just running from God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're able to say it now, but it's like, it's pretty amazing that you're able to first be transparent. Second, it's pretty amazing that you're able to turn it in a way where, I don't know, you're just saying like I'm fully responsible for my actions and what I did. Because it'd be so easy just to dump everything on the lady, right? And just be like, but it's like, it shows like some pretty amazing transformation and some humility that God has done, that you could go back and say, I was wrong in that thing. And it's like, that shouldn't have happened. And I wish it didn't happen. And what I'm trying to say is that I think a lot of times people, when they look at their past, don't want to be maybe honest about their past. They would rather, you know what I mean? They would rather spin the story in a way where, I'm always the hero.
Right.
But it's very difficult to put yourself in a place where it's like the Bible.
Right.
Like God just allows the sins of man to be like fully exposed and revealed.
Right.
And then sure, you get to see the redemption side of it and it's beautiful, but it almost doesn't become beautiful until you realize what the person had to go through. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, it's just amazing what the Lord's been able to do, I guess, Andrew, for you, like to be able to even look back on that and see it from that lens. I'm blessed by it.
Yeah. I always say that if you want to heal, you got to be real. If you're not authentic or you're not being honest and transparent, you're cheating yourself on some growth. I mean, you're only cheating yourself. I could sit here and spin it and make myself the victim of my circumstances in my life. It was because she opened up a unhealed father wound, or she used. I could sit here and do that all day. But who do I reach? Who do I help? Is there any purpose found in that if I'm always the hero or always the victim? And so it just seems like. It seems like this generation and the people who I'm ministering to hunger for truth and authenticity, and they can see through anything and everything else. Plus, you could read my rap sheet. It's available, man. It's on Google. You can go and see all the dirt that I did. And so it's like, I feel like it's best for me just to be open and honest. And that has been the biggest catalyst to growth when it comes to influence and territory is when you just share from a raw place and be vulnerable. And some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it, but the people who hate it aren't your people.
Yeah.
So
well, I think it's powerful, it's clearly powerful, and it affects people because I think humans can pick up on those things. Everybody wants to know the reality and the realness of stories and what's going on. And then again, to bookend the story to where it's at right now and just to see what God has done, again, makes all of these moments that much more beautiful, and so it's, I don't know, absolutely incredible. Again, to the valleys, valley lows, mountain high tops, that just keep coming, and which is the story of life. So you're out and you're like, you're angry at God.
yeah.
But I mean, your wife's there, your kid's there, and you come on the other side of prison. You've been reading books every single day, trying to work on self, and boom, you're back in action.
I'm back in action. A lot of healing actually did take place outside of or inside of prison. So although it wasn't through the lens of Christianity and my relationship with the Lord.
How old are you around that time?
33.
33?
When I got out. Yeah, about 33. But the healing took place because I was able to go to some of those places that I never had the time to. I was never intentional about. And so a part of my journaling and writing is I wrote letters to my mom. I wrote letters to my dad, never sent them or gave them, but there was healing that took place during that 18 months. And so it was something that I needed to come to grips with who I was, to reflect on the trajectory of my life, to weigh out my strengths, like realize, hey, I'm resilient like my mom. When put in a situation where I'm disciplined and consistent, I have the ability to succeed. And so I need to, take a step back and look at my life. What am I going to do? Right? It's not the end of your life. You can look at it as the beginning or the end. It's up to you. So I came out and I hit the ground running. My wife and I got a divorce. And she went her separate way. I went my separate way. And so for the first year, I spent, my life really just kind of sowing my wild oats. It wasn't a time of seeking the Lord. I had been married since I was 19. And so it was for the first time I was single.
Oh, wow.
And I was in good shape after getting out of prison. And so I spent my time, on every dating app you could possibly think of, taking advantage of social media, which had changed since the last time I was in there. And I just, I went on a tear, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
So for a year or so, and then did the Lord show up somewhere along the road here?
Yeah. So
you're still in Oregon, is that right?
Still in Oregon.
Yeah.
Still in Oregon. I guess it all comes to a head when I started an online training business. This is before the pandemic. After I lost the gym in my divorce, I started another gym with a group of individuals from the previous one. And, I was working pretty flexible hours, but I wanted to do online stuff. I started traveling. Before prison, the furthest that I had traveled in my 30 some odd years of life was like to California for Disneyland. I didn't travel. I'd never left the country. I didn't have a passport. And while I was in prison, I realized that something that I want to do is I want to see the world. Like I want to travel. So that first year, I went to Hawaii a couple of times. I went to Vegas. I went to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, of all places. Like I just started traveling. And what I realized is that I wanted to create something where I could still make money and travel as well. So I started an online training program. And what that led me to is like seeing the value in social media. So I started working on a social media presence as well. This is the same time where TikTok started like taking off. So I get TikTok. My kids tell me about it.
Wow. And
so I start doing dances.
Yeah.
They didn't take off. Nobody wants to see me dance. Go figure.
Oh, I love it.
I can't dance. I'm built like a robot, man.
I love it.
It's not pretty.
Yeah.
So then I start doing workout videos. Like I was allergic to t-shirts. You couldn't see me I had my shirt off and I was doing all this stuff. Nobody cared. Right? Nobody cared. It didn't go anywhere. And so one night, I was in a pretty bad place. I was going through a couple of different personal things. And I said, you know what? I'm going to share a part of my testimony. So I posted this video, a 15-second video where I pointed at things. And one of the box said, things God's carried me through. I pointed at another box and it said prison. One said divorce and one said foster care. And then the last box said, and everything else. Basically, God's carried me through all this. I'm at this place. I know God. Kind of wrestling with it. Anyway, I post the video and it goes viral. I'm talking, I went to bed with like 200 followers. The next morning I had 15,000 followers on TikTok.
Unbelievable.
Took off. And so, for me, I was like, okay, like this is the recipe. This is what it is. I've got to be vulnerable and honest and share from those places. But I was reading the messages, and this is what brought me back to Jesus. It was this moment. One of the messages said, Andrew, I saw your video last night, and it was something to the effect of like, I've been to prison, I've been divorced, and I've been through foster care. I was going to take my life last night, but because you said God's carried you through those, if he could do it for you, he could do it for me, and I decided not to end my life. And that I lost it. I lost it. And it was almost like a quickening in that moment. At the moment, I didn't realize what was going on, but I was just flooded with emotions. I started crying and I hadn't cried in years. I didn't cry when I went to prison. I didn't cry when I got out. I hadn't cried forever. And I just started bawling. And I can look back and pinpoint that was the moment that I realized that that prophetic word that was spoken over my life was coming to fruition through this. And so from there, I started making Christian content. I rededicated my life to Jesus.
Wow.
I started going back to church. I dusted off my Bible. And I just said, you know what? My decisions and choices have gotten me this far, God. Like, do with me as you please. Like, I'm yours. Whatever it is, I'm yours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man, that Yeah, I guess it's a testimony of other people. God speaking to you through the testimony of other people and seeing that God can use all of your pain, all of your suffering, all of your life for his glory, and you choose to attempt to do it, even on a very, like God carried me through.
Right.
Like it's really it's a massive story, but it's a very simple testimony.
Yeah.
And boom, this like shatters like all this, you know what I mean? It just breaks the glass walls. Like, and I guess what it caused me to realize is that God is ready and willing to use anybody who's ready and willing to be used. And if we would just, again, open our hands to him. And like you said, I think this generation is dying they've seen so much fake for so long. They just need something authentic, something real, something not AI, right?
Yeah.
And it's weird to watch the generation even like, some rebel against social media because they grew up on it. They've had so much of it and they can't find, rich content. But that's the thing that basically turns you to the Lord.
Yeah.
And so, you had some discipleship kind of under a pastor way back when. Were you reflecting back on that? Did that start to feed into, what you were doing at that moment? Like all of a sudden you were just like, because you go from CrossFit and, wild 18 months, and then coming out of that, another year of, and then all of a sudden you're being pulled back into walking with the Lord and into Christ. But, what do you do? Like, how do you?
Yeah, the word doesn't return void.
Amen.
And the seed that was planted never went anywhere.
Yeah.
It's funny because even in my time away from God, as I look at it as almost like a Jonah moment, is I had this calling and I was supposed to do something and I went my own way. I tried to run for it. My 3 days was 10 years or more. But at the end of the day, it's like I had to surrender and come back to what it is. I had to go to Nineveh. I have to do what God's called me to do and created me to do. And so that word, it was almost like it was just uncovered. I almost compartmentalized all of that training and the time in the word. I took it and I buried it deep down in the recesses of my heart so that I could go back about and do the things that I could do. But again, being married at 19 and being saved at 17, you can stuff the word down, but none of it ever sits right. So even when I was sowing my wild oats and I was running around, none of it felt right. It didn't feel good. It wasn't like it used to be.
Right.
So what do? We kind of close our eyes, we harden our heart, and we keep pressing forward, thinking that the next one's going to be better. The next high will be higher. The next drunk will be drunker. The next girl will be, and it just never was there. And so when this happened, it was almost like the Lord reached down and he uncovered that word. And it was all right there. Like I spent time in the word. I know about prayer and fasting. I was trained and discipled and was being raised up to be a pastor. So none of that was in vain or gone. It just was like, it's there. So now, over a decade later, I'm stepping into social media ministry with actual training. And I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the word because I spent time in it. So,
and your social media platforms just took off, huh?
Yeah.
Really incredible.
Yeah. Overnight. So what I like to share, so the prophetic word was words of gold, speak to millions of people about Jesus and called the ministry. And today, the snapshot is that on TikTok alone, we have 1.3 million followers.
Unreal.
1.5 million on YouTube.
Wow.
And 400,000 or so on Instagram. So every day I speak to millions of people about Jesus.
Unreal.
Every day.
Andrew.
The words of gold, I've written a couple of books, 4 books now. I have a new book coming out this fall.
Wow.
So that's words of gold.
Wow.
That's my books are about prayer, privilege of prayer. Like
I love it.
Mentioned. The newest one is a prayer devotional. And then the ministry, we planted a church in 2021. So all of those things that were spoke over my life over a decade ago, I'm living and walking in it right now as we speak. God is faithful. And the Holy Spirit is a hound. He never let me go. And some people would come in and say, oh, well, you weren't saved or you didn't really know him. I knew Jesus. I decided to turn my back and to walk away. But I firmly believe that he never let me go. He never turned his back on me, and he was a part of my life every step of the way. And literally took my mess that I was making and turned it into a miracle. And it's all for his glory.
Amazing.
It's not because of anything that I do that's unique that has brought this following or any of these things. I'm just as bland and boring as the next guy. It's favor and influence from God because he's prepared me to steward it.
How do you manage, well, I guess what did you see any like the niche or the epiphany like that you stumbled upon, you felt that it was being vulnerable and authentic, and that is mixed with maybe whatever is the latest going on these platforms, and you were able to grab onto it? It's not easy to do. People attempt to do this, but you clearly have this ability to see it, capture it, and to be able to understand what the viewers, desire, mixed with the Holy Spirit, God showing up, and doing the magic. But is there something in there that you've seen that you just like over these last, what is it? It's been 7-8 years or so.
This is in 2019, so about 5 years.
5 years, incredible. So 5 years, all of this happens. Like, is there something that you, kind of a common denominator that you see through, like a string that runs through these social media accounts, or something that like there's just a button that you press that just seems to really connect with the audience? Or like, what have you stumbled upon?
And I think you nailed it. It's always changing. It's always changing and moving. There's not a one size fits all. And I can even look at my content and how it's evolved and changed over the years, because what worked in one season definitely doesn't work now. But you also said it's all being led by the Holy Spirit. What I post and what I share is what comes from an overflow of intimacy with time spent with the Lord. So I personally don't try to chase trends or what's popular, because I feel like to do so would be disobedient. The platform's not for me or for me to grow it. Right? What does they say? Paul plants and Apollos waters.
Yeah.
God increases.
Yes.
He makes the increase. He brings the increase. It's the same with social media. I'm going to be faithful. I'm going to steward it. I'm not going to allow it to become a God. And as I do so, he continues to grow the platform. So you won't see on my stuff a lot of trending. I'm not dancing anymore. I'm not doing anything that is going on. I'm just staying true to who God's called me to be, which is authentic and transparent. And I feel like our ministry and my ministry is really built around prayer, as most should be.
Totally.
But I use that. And so what you'll see on my social media are a lot of prayers, 3 prayers for this, or a nighttime prayer. So I'm constantly praying, encouraging people to pray. My book, The Privilege of Prayer, kind of goes on top of that. Everything we're doing is trying to encourage people to stop looking at prayer as an obligation, but as an opportunity.
How do you hold, social media can be obviously both an incredible tool that you can reach the world with. I mean, you can literally touch the whole world. I mean, never before has this opportunity been available, and literally now, and you can build out your own production and your own show to some degree, right? You don't have to go to the radio. You don't have to go to television networks. You don't have to go to any of this stuff. You can literally build whatever you want to build. It has this incredible reach and opportunity. And then it also comes with, I don't know, this monster that builds and calls to you, constantly feed me, and it's, do you have any wisdom or on how to hold the two, in your hands and balance them out? This is not an easy path to navigate.
Yeah. I mean, I would say create boundaries and guardrails, limit your social media use, and, stick to it. So if I have boundaries and guardrails, I do all of my posting within a specific time frame. I give myself about an hour or so. And so I post during the hour in the morning, and then I prep an hour at night for what I'm going to post the next day. So I spend about a total of 2 hours on social media, and that's me scrolling, researching, creating all of that. So because it's a part of my job.
Yeah.
Also, I mean,
Sure.
I make money from it
Totally.
as well. So I look at those 2 hours as an investment.
Yes.
And also I want to steward well what God's given me. So boundaries are huge, and guardrails to make sure, and then take a Sabbath from it. You know, take a rest.
That's good.
You know, if you're more concerned that you're not going to grow if you take a day off, like then that's your guy. You're putting your too much trust and faith and hope in a social media platform and algorithm. You got to take a rest and take a break from it as well.
So good. Yeah, so good. Where do you see it going in the future? Can you have any insight of where you see maybe the generation going, or what social media is up to? Do you feel any of the, I guess it's two questions. Do you feel any of the pullback from it? Like all of a sudden, like this kind of the beginning of this year, like kind of this massive pullback. I don't know if maybe YouTube engagement like has stayed up, but then kind of social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook kind of has pulled back a little bit. I don't know. Love to hear your insight.
I mean, it's always ebbing and flowing. It's up and it's down. The thing about people is that people will get on a rant about, oh, I'm done with social media. It's just like a New Year's resolution, as most people end up finding their way back to it. You can only play Monopoly on the toilet for so long before you're scrolling,
Totally, yeah.
And so, I want that for people. I hope and wish that people would take less time on their phone. But the truth of the matter is that it's addictive. They know what they're doing when it comes down to it. So, I see a pullback in this newer generation, but what I've also seen is this newer generation, what they're doing is stuff that's just off the wall. I don't understand a lot of stuff that they're posting.
Right.
These fever dreams and just this weird stuff. I'm like, man, I don't get it, but I see that they're still there. They're just taking what it is and they're making it kind of fit what they're drawn to. And their stuff it's crazy, man. I don't know. Yeah.
No, it's good. I can't keep up with it, dude. I was really consistent for a long time, and I just, again, that monster build, and that's what I'll never forget. I don't remember where I heard it, but it's like, the way you build it is the way you have to maintain it, and it's like, I'm noticing it was with everything, really. The way I build it is the way I have to maintain. And so every time I'm looking at commitment and time. I got 3 kids now, little kids, 6, 3, and 1. And then we got the church in LA, and then, we got the show, and we got counseling, and, we got Bible study and sermons and, everything, right? And remodeling, the church, it's just, we got to do everything. So, and trying to love our wife and trying to,
Self-care.
trying to love our kid, trying to stay in shape and hit the sauna and, just all the things. And it's like, I don't know. I'm reflecting on a bunch of the things you're saying because it's really incredible, to see God use it and do some, just amazing things through social media. And I go back and forth on it for sure. It's just like there's just been years where I've just been just all in and focused and really trying to figure it out again, because the tide changed. And I don't know. I'm in a season of little kids again, and so it's like. I love how you said boundaries. I think that's an amazing tip. I'm reflecting on a book by Henry Cloud called Boundaries. Amazing book, Boundaries for Leaders, Boundaries for Families. He's got a ton of stuff. But that is so true. If you compartmentalize that into an hour or 2 hours on a day or a couple days during the week, you could probably do pretty well. And that's probably even good for just the average user. It's just like, you don't need to be on it all day, every day. Why don't you just check in for 30 minutes once a day, or check in, every other day for 30 minutes. And that keeps the mental health, the emotional health in a lot better place. I would love to hear your tenacity and dedication and focus and drive to be able to take risks, fail, take risks, win, fail, take risks, win again. Mm-hmm. Like most people will take risks, fail, and just say, forget it. Most people will taste of a win and then fail and then say, forget it. But like you continue to just press and push and test.
Yeah.
You got to be vulnerable to do that as well. You put yourself out there, should have heard the conversations with me and Dave and the guys about this show right here, like, we're just like, nobody's going to listen. We're going to do it. Nobody's going to come on the podcast. It's just too much work. All the things, And then, boom, we launched. I said, let's just give it a year. We'll do 51 episodes. We did 51 episodes.
Wow.
And we just said, we'll just do 1 year and just see what happens. And if it doesn't work, who cares? If it works, Our goal was 1,000 subscribers. If we can just get 1,000 people engaged, that'd be a win for us, you know? Yeah. So we just went after it, and then it's working. It feels great, you know? It's great. And but I would love to hear anything on that. Like I love that, man. And I love when I see that in other guys, and just like, you have that, praise God. Like, you have that. And like, you know, as we grow older, we want to take less risks. Because we got to get more responsible, and we got family, and we got stuff to take care of. And like, the church is doing well now, so I don't need to like do risky, you know, like, we're just going to stay, but to continue that tenacity, to continue that dedication, that devotion, that focus, long-term, of just keep pressing, keep taking risks, see what God might do. Yeah. Like, where does that come from? What, you know, what is that in you?
Man, I would just say I spent a lot of time reading, and you just Google failure quotes about failure. You know, Michael Jordan, you know, I've taken 10,000 shots, and he talks about how failure is the way. I feel like you fail your way to success. And I feel like faith requires a certain amount of risk. Like, faith without risk is not faith at all.
Right.
Essentially,
right.
It was a risk for Peter to step out of the boat and to walk on water. Right? We say that it took faith, but it was a risk. Like,
totally.
Could have just sunk immediately.
He's the only one who did it.
He's the only one who did it.
Yeah.
And so I just, I feel like if you're not taking risks, I'm not sure if you're living to the fullness of what God's called you to. And I'm not talking about like driving your car off a cliff. Sure. It doesn't have to be a crazy risk, but I feel like there's a certain amount of risk that we need to be taken in life in order to be successful or to maximize who God's called us to be. So it was just from a young age realizing and seeing the resilience in my mom. She would fail. And, you know, I'm talking like, she would work for 6 months and have a job, and she would be clean and sober, and, you know, she would fall. It would start with her, I'm going to have a beer after work. I knew the cycle. Okay, well, a little beer leads to a little weed. A little weed, next thing is crystal meth. The next thing you know, we've lost everything. But she would always bounce back. She would say, you know what, this time it's going to be better this time. And she'd get up, and now that 6 months, she did a year of clean and sober, and things got better. But then, you know, I would see the disruptive cycle, the consistent cycle, you know, the lack of discipline, the lack of knowing yourself. And, you know, but seeing her get up over and over after failing, it was just like, if she can get up after that, like train wreck in her life, man, I can get up after whatever it is. And,
incredible.
You know, she's still fighting, she's still working, and she's still got her trials. I'll share one of the craziest things that happened to my mom recently within the last 10 years. Actually, it was the year I went to prison. She had 5 years clean. So she's got 6 now. She had 5 before this. She got married to a guy named Terry, and they were doing really good. They had a little trailer together. They both worked at the same diner. They lived in this small little town, and, you know, he was the cook. She was one of the waitresses. They had a cute little life, right? And she was happy. You could just, you know, we always say when my mom, she was fat and happy.
Yeah.
When she's clean, she's not all strung out.
Right.
So she was fat and happy. She had a glow about her. Wow. The same year that I went to prison, she called bawling, and her husband died. And it was a tragic accident. He was working, he was changing the oil on the car and getting ready to go to work. And so apparently the car fell off the jack and crushed him and drug him across the street. So she looked out the window and the car was gone. She figured that he went to go put gas in the car. So she waited for 45 minutes. And finally she goes out and sees the car nose up in the ditch and his body hanging out from underneath. And that's a dark story, right? I don't mean to like take a turn, but that sent her off the deep end, you know? And so she went 5 years clean and sober. The only thing she knew what to do was to go to drugs. But even after that, she had the faith to pick herself up and the resiliency to get back up. I think she ran around doing drugs for about a year, trying to heal and cope from that. And now she's got 6 years. And so it's a story of just, my mom's story is a story of resilience.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Shout out to Mom, man. Yeah. 6 years still making it happen, man. That's amazing, and has influenced your life greatly to be able to continue on, keep pressing on, keep pushing on so far to plant a church in Los Angeles of all places, Andrew.
Yeah.
LA, man.
I hear that's a pretty tough place to plant.
Dude.
I didn't know.
Wow.
I don't know anything about church.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, well, you know, it was fun. There was a lot of planting going on pre like 2020. I should even say maybe not a lot, but definitely that 10 years prior, it seemed like there was a lot of people attempting to plant. And then obviously when 2020 happened, it was just like, that was a big, it's like everybody ran for the hills.
Wow.
And it's kind of been a drought, since, probably 2019. So the fact that Andrew Carter showing up in town says, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm like all ears, dude, because I'm like, I love it. It's like, I love, again, that it's super hard ground, but the grit and the grind and the discipline and the focus and the dedication, the consistency, that's exactly what it takes.
Yeah.
There are 10 million people, right, in the county.
Yeah.
4 million in the city, and plenty of customers and that don't know Jesus.
Right.
Oh my gosh. And this city is spiritual, man. They are hungry. And they're starving. They're in a desert land starving. They're looking for wells. And I do believe like that is the equation. Like just to consistently show up and love and serve the people. The old man told me, like, just preach the word and love the people. Preach the word, love the people. Preach the word, love the people. Preach the word, love the people. And they'll show up. It'll happen. And I don't know, a little bit of our story, but we grew 5 years and the church was doing unbelievably well. Pandemic hits, guts the church completely. We go online for 8 months. We lose our location. We have to open up at American Jewish University over in Bel Air. And our lowest attendance, Chris keeps it recorded. He said 43 people. 39 people. Just gutted the church. We went from 2 services packed out, the whole thing happening, back down to 39 people. And it's just like, then we didn't get back in our location until April 2021. And so we've been rebuilding for the last 4 years. But when I look back on it, I just I don't even know why I did that. Like, why I just keep showing up? Why I just keep there is nothing spectacular and magical about what we do. I mean, we kind of laugh about it sometimes. It's just like we're doing the same thing we've always done. We just didn't stop doing it. But I think they're just looking, even if you don't have the sweet water, like you just got water.
Right.
And it's living water.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's good enough, and it's just like, and just to be consistent, just to watch God do it. But dude, you've taken the step of faith. You guys are meeting in Inglewood. Is this right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inglewood.
And the Miracle Theater.
The Miracle Theater.
And you guys are Sundays at
10 a.m.
10 a.m. And you've been going at it for how long now?
October of 21. So going on 3 years.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah.
And you were telling me you guys are clicking from 2 to 3 times a month. You're going to 4 times a month now, and this is fully happening.
It's fully happening.
Yeah.
No Sundays off.
Yes, and this happens when?
September 1st.
September 1st. And time again on Sunday?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. So you got to show, if you're in LA, you got to go show up at Andrew's church, go check it out, 10 a.m. And I'm sure he'd love to meet you, love to greet you. And we need more churches in LA.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to do.
So much work.
You think you'll probably stay here long term? What do you think's going to happen? You're just going to go at it and see what happens?
No, I mean, I actually have a vision and a game plan.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
For what we're doing here. So, we were planted in 2021, and it's a 7-year plan. It's until 2028. What people might not know who are listening about Inglewood is it's a booming city right now. So we have... we just hosted the Super Bowl in 2020.
Yes.
We're hosting it again in 2027.
SoFi Stadium,
which just which took off.
Which is like $4 billion project or something crazy like this.
One of the greatest.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the most expensive to date. We have the Intuit Dome. The Intuit Dome now houses the Clippers. It'll be their official stadium, and they tip off in September.
Wow.
So the same time that we're launching. So we have these 2 major stadiums. These are 3 blocks from my house. When I'm sitting in my office, I can see SoFi.
Wild.
I go to a gym, and when I go to the gym, I got to drive past SoFi and Intuit.
Wow.
Right there. So we host the Chargers and the Rams, now the Clippers. But not only do we have a Super Bowl in 27, we have, I believe, the All-Star Game in 25. We host the next Olympics in Inglewood. So we just finished the Paris Olympics.
Unbelievable.
2028 is in Inglewood.
Wow.
We have a soccer cup, Major League Soccer Cup as well, and then a bunch of other stuff. We have the YouTube Stadium, the old Forum, where you name it, the biggest of biggest, pop singers and artists.
Concerts happen there.
So we're popping up right in this same city. With all of that that's going on, there is a huge amount of gentrification taking place. So a lot of these older facilities and places are being uprooted, and the cost of living is through the roof. So at the same time, there's all of these changes happening in the economy and in the physical. We understand that there's also a spiritual shift. And I believe that God's bringing in new people who need a church that is life-giving, that is also diverse. There hasn't been historically a lot of diversity. Primarily the churches are Black churches, Hispanic churches, Korean churches, or your white churches. We are a church, because I'm multicultural, my wife is as well. Our church looks like heaven. I mean, we've got Asians and Blacks and Mexicans and whites. We got everybody from young to old.
Praise God.
And it's a beautiful thing. So the 7-year game plan is basically building this out until 2028, the year that the Olympics take place, and then raising up, and that's what we're in the process of doing, leaders and individuals who will essentially take over and will lead and pastor the church.
Oh, I love it.
I have more of an apostolic calling.
Yeah.
I believe that I'm a church planter.
Yeah.
And I feel like God called me to plant in one of the hardest places to start, because if I can plant here, I can plant anywhere with his help and his guidance. And so that's kind of the vision and what has been spoken to our heart, what we've got on paper, and the direction that we're going. So, we're building this place up, and we'll see what he hasn't revealed to us what the next step is, but it's just be faithful and build this up in Inglewood, and we'll see where we go from there.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love the vision. I love I love the specifics of that vision. Like, why not? Why not calculate? Why not really project for an actual goal and something to actually accomplish? Aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time.
Come on.
Right?
That's right.
I was like, I got to aim at something, and I'm going to put it down on paper, and we're going to work towards it and see what God might do.
Yeah. Yeah. I got an exit strategy. I feel like sometimes if this is gonna.
Yeah, I got it. I hear you. Yeah, go for it. Swing.
I just feel like, I don't know if the title of pastor was intended to be 30, 40 years. I feel like our goal as pastors and leaders are to raise up the next generation and to get people. I feel like we get too comfortable. You start getting a couple hundred, couple thousand people, and the money's good and everything's good, and we tend to rest on our laurels, and we're no longer pursuing the Great Commission. Now we've got staff doing all of our stuff. We spend more time in wine country sitting back thinking about our next sermon series than we are about the actual people. I want to be on the front lines, man. Christ transformed my life. And I feel like what I have and what God has put in me isn't just for Inglewood. I feel like he needs more men and more leaders with that same passion. And so I feel like it's a small assignment for a season to raise them up, right? Bring them in, build them up, and then send them out. And I feel like that's what I'm called to do in this city, and then go to the next. And I just want to be on the front line. Man. I don't want to sit back with, I want a little comfort, but I don't want to sit back and get too comfy.
Totally.
So,
yeah, no,
it'll step on toes.
No, it's good. I love it. It's powerful, because what happens is, pastors will remain in place for decades.
Yeah.
And when it comes time to raise somebody up and disciple, dude, there are so many amazing churches just falling apart now because they have no discipleship, and they have no one really to step in the shoes of this giant figure. It's near impossible for it to happen. And Aaron and I were just talking about this like a couple months ago, where it's like, what is the probability of sustainability for a church of 15,000 people? What is the probability? It's like that a man another person will step in and take over a church of 15,000 and continue to keep it at 15,000 and grow it bigger, or even sustain it. And what is the chances that guy will actually hand it off to somebody else and they will sustain that? Now, if you grow a church of 300 people and you hand it off to somebody else, what are the chances that you could raise up somebody that could sustain a church of 300 people? Very likely, very New Testament, like very Book of Acts stuff. Like, that church could be maintained for hundreds of years, 500, 1,000 years easily. But what we're doing is you're right, we're building things in such a way without a vision of passing the baton and handing it off. And we saw, we've seen some major handoffs that have been fantastic and have been great, but we've also seen some handoffs that have been unbelievably sad.
Disastrous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big problem that I see in our city, in my city right now, is, we talked about our brother Bill, a friend.
Bill Buffington, shout out.
That's right.
Love you, Bill.
And he's been great. He's taken me to coffee and has just poured into me. But he sees the exact same thing that I see. We have a lot of churches in the city, but not a lot of them are passing the baton. They're dying churches. They have these big, amazing facilities and buildings, and a congregation of 15 people because they haven't passed the baton. They haven't raised up the next leader. They haven't done any of those things. And so a lot of these buildings and churches, what I'm seeing are turned into, CDCs, community development centers. They're feeding the homeless, or they're turning themselves into, because they passed that new law, into like housing facilities and structures, but they're no longer actually holding churches in these churches, but still enjoying the tax breaks and benefits as well as the subsidization from the city. So you have all of these issues that are taking place where these churches have been around for 100 years, consider themselves a church, have a congregation of 15, 20 people, still reaping all of the benefits, impacting the community in a small way, but they're not actually preaching the gospel. They're not giving life. And we need to do, I sound like I'm running for mayor.
Elect this man.
Come on. Right now. But no, it's disheartening because, again, like I was sharing with you, is I didn't grow up in church. So I don't know man's tradition. All I know is the word of God. And so what I'm doing is it's like, let's get back to this Acts church that I'm reading about. And what I'm seeing in a lot of these churches isn't what I'm reading about in the Bible. It's become a career, or it's become like this business. It's an organization and not an organism. And I understand that it's got to be a little bit of both, but they're lacking the heart of Christ, right? They know about Jesus, but they don't know him. I don't see him present in a lot of these things. And I just think it's an issue of comfort, man. We've just gotten too comfortable. Anyway, I'm preaching on your podcast. Let me stop.
Preach. No, it's such good stuff. Andrew, how can people find you online? Where can people connect? I'm sure people are interested. Obviously, what's the best point of connection? And anything else you want to throw out there? Upcoming stuff you guys got going? And
they can reach me at Andrew F. Carter across all platforms, Andrew F. Carter or royalcitychurch.org. As far as things that we've got coming up we're just launching full time, and that's exciting. And
what's the date on that again?
September 1st.
September 1. And you got another book coming up, right?
I do.
Working on?
I do. Yeah, it releases this fall.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Exciting, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I'm so stoked on all the stuff that you're doing here in the city. You're inspiring. You challenge and encourage my soul, even from a distance, just meeting you and hearing the story and all that's going on. Happy to plow the ground with you here in LA. You need anything, man, let me know. We're here to love you guys, support you, and cheer you on along the way. Thanks for inspiring so many, dude. Please continue to do it. May the Lord bless and keep your family, your wife, and your kids. And may the Lord give favor to your church, man. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show today. We really appreciate you. And it would mean the world to us if you would like or subscribe and you would write an honest review for us. It's one of the fastest ways to get the word out for us and to share it with others. And so if you don't like texting for a review, you can always voice to text. That's a fast way to write one and really help us rate the show and get it out to the world. Thank you so much for listening again. We hope it continues to bless you and encourage you each and every week. And of course, leave you stoked.